Have you ever met someone's gaze and immediately felt an internal realignment? Not in the atmosphere around you, but deep within your own spirit. It is that silent ignition, one that demands no audience and seeks no consent, but simply murmurs a quiet command to take notice because something profound is taking root. The majority of us disregard this initial murmur. We typically dismiss it as a trick of the mind, a fleeting bout of nerves, or merely a random coincidence. Yet, consider the possibility that it was not a mistake. What if your heart identified a truth that your logic has yet to successfully label? Today, we will uncover the reality beneath that silent sensation. These 8 indicators will do more than simply confirm you are not imagining things. They will expose whether a mutual, hidden affection is blossoming in that soft, magnetic way where authentic chemistry takes form. This reflects the wisdom of Carl Jung, who suggested that the meeting of 2 personalities mirrors the contact of 2 chemical substances. If a reaction occurs, both elements are irrevocably altered. Often, this metamorphosis begins in total silence, because this phenomenon goes far deeper than the simple flutter of butterflies. It's about resonance. It's about the moments you never tell anyone about. The way your breath changes. The way your thoughts rearrange themselves. The way your chest feels lighter at the same time when that one person appears. So, let's walk slowly into this truth, because there's something here you may have felt for a long time, but couldn't quite understand. It begins with a look. Not a long stare, not something dramatic, just eye contact that feels like gravity. You don't plan it. You don't chase it. Yet when your eyes meet, something inside you stays there. It lingers, not awkwardly, but knowingly. Like 2 souls standing in the same doorway at the same time. You don't even realize. You're holding the gaze until the moment breaks, and you both look away with that quiet inhale. The one that asks, "What was that?" When someone feels like home, the eyes always know before the mind does. Psychologists call this a mutual gaze, but you don't need a psychological term to understand what your heart already feels. That kind of eye contact isn't flirtation, it's recognition. It's the wordless acknowledgement that something between you has started to breathe. Then something else happens, almost invisibly. Your body begins to tune itself to theirs. You catch yourself laughing when they laugh, matching their posture, speaking softer when they speak softer, echoing phrases they've said days before. They do the same without realizing it. Emotional mirroring isn't deliberate. It's not calculated. It's the nervous system saying, "I feel safe with you." It's the subconscious whispering, "I'm listening and I see you." 2 people who mirror each other aren't performing. They're synchronizing. It's chemistry on the level beneath thought, the level where truth doesn't need permission to show itself. And then there's the shift. The undeniable shift that happens the moment they walk into the room. It doesn't matter if you are exhausted, distracted, overwhelmed, or buried in your own head. Suddenly, you're awake again. You're aware of your shoulders, your breathing, the way your voice sounds. Their presence changes your atmosphere. And if you pay attention carefully, you'll notice the same shift in them. Their smile lifts by a fraction. Their tone softens. Their attention steadies. It's not dramatic. It's not loud, but it is unmistakably real. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart." Sometimes that clarity arrives the moment someone else walks into your world, and something inside you feels less chaotic, less confusing, more aligned. Chemistry doesn't always feel like sparks. Sometimes it feels like calm. You might start noticing how often your paths cross, not because of coincidence, but because at least one of you keeps creating tiny opportunities to be near the other. You take the slightly longer route just to pass their desk or their usual spot. They linger an extra moment in the hallway, or ask a small question that didn't really need to be asked. You both pretend it's ordinary, but it isn't. Crushes orbit each other in subtle ways. Not because they're trying to manipulate anything, but because presence itself feels like a reward. And when someone feels safe to your soul, you begin opening little doors without realizing it. You share small vulnerabilities, a memory, a frustration, a joy you didn't expect to talk about. You find comfort in their presence before you fully understand why. You reveal pieces of yourself lightly, carefully, but willingly. They listen in a way that isn't passive. They hear you. They remember. Emotional intimacy doesn't begin with deep confessions. It begins with the softness of feeling understood. And then there's the teasing, the gentle compliments, the moments of shared humor or unexpected warmth. Flirting doesn't have to be bold. Often it's the quiet things, those small, playful remarks, the tiny jokes made just for the two of you, the compliments that feel too honest to be casual. When someone says, "You have this calm energy. I like being around you," that's not surface level. That's appreciation wrapped inside honesty. But perhaps the most telling sign is the tension. Not the uncomfortable kind, but the beautiful kind. The pause before you say goodbye. The way you both hesitate, as if leaving means breaking a moment neither of you wants to end. The glance that lasts half a second too long. The silence that feels charged, yet soft. Psychologists call this anticipatory chemistry. Your heart calls it possibility. And while you two might still be silent about what you feel, the world around you often isn't. Friends tease. Someone raises an eyebrow when you stand next to each other. People smile knowingly when your names are mentioned in the same sentence. Because when two people are drawn to one another, the energy becomes visible, even when the words haven't caught up. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Maybe what you're feeling isn't confusion. Maybe it's your unconscious, recognizing a connection before your conscious mind fully admits it. So maybe it's not just in your head. Maybe this connection is real, quiet, and gently unfolding. Maybe your heart already knows something your thoughts are just beginning to understand. If this resonates, take one soft breath. Don't rush it. Don't force clarity. Just acknowledge the truth stirring inside you. And if someone came to mind, maybe they came to mind for a reason. There's something remarkable that happens when a mutual crush begins to bloom quietly between two people. It doesn't arrive with certainty or declarations. It begins with subtlety, small shifts in behavior, small sparks of awareness, tiny windows of truth opening inside the moments you'd normally overlook. And even though neither of you has spoken about it, there is an unspoken understanding developing in the space between your conversations, your glances, your accidental touches. You start noticing patterns you didn't intend to create. The way you both lean slightly closer during conversations, almost as if your bodies are having their own silent dialogue. The way your smiles appear faster, brighter, more unguarded when they're directed at each other. These aren't coincidences. They are emotional fingerprints, unique, involuntary signatures of interest. The more you pay attention, the more you realize how instinctively you both gravitate toward each other in group settings. Not in a forced or obvious way, but in small, natural movements. You end up sitting near each other, even if the room is full. Your jokes seem aimed at each other, even when others are listening. You catch their facial expressions instinctively, as if their reactions matter a little more than everyone else's. Your attention prioritizes them without your permission. There's a reason for this. When someone draws your emotions, your nervous system becomes attuned to their presence. You notice their voice in a crowded room, the way they laugh, the way they say your name. And when that feeling is mutual, their body responds to you the same way. A mutual crush creates an emotional echo. Your energy reflects back to you through them. But one of the strongest signs appears in the moments of silence. Not the conversation, not the teasing, but the pauses. When you're both quiet, something lingers, something warm, something curious. Silence should feel empty, but with them, it feels full. It feels like a space where your hearts can breathe, without the pressure to perform or impress. This kind of comfort is rare. It's not based on attraction alone. It's based on resonance. Two emotional frequencies aligning naturally. You might notice how often they check in with you, even in small ways. A quick message, a gentle question, a random comment that shows they remembered something you said in passing. They're paying attention in a way most people don't. And without realizing it, you respond with the same level of care. That's the beauty of a mutual crush. Affection becomes instinctive, not intentional. There is also a subtle protectiveness that emerges, not in a possessive way, but in the soft instinct to make sure the other person is all right. They defend you lightly in conversations. They notice when you seem off. They compliment you at just the right moment, not out of flattery, but because they genuinely see you. This kind of emotional attunement doesn't develop with everyone. It grows when two people carry a quiet desire to be meaningful to each other. Another sign appears in the way time feels different around them. Minutes pass faster or slower depending on what your heart is doing. You lose track of time during conversations, yet you remember every detail afterward. You replay moments in your head without meaning to. Not obsessively, just naturally. And if they are doing the same, you'll sense it in how effortlessly your conversations continue, as if each new message is picking up from a thread neither of you wants to drop. Your connection behaves like a story unfolding, not a moment that ends. And then there's the way your emotions shift when they're vulnerable. When they open up even just a little, you feel honored, trusted. You don't dismiss what they say. You hold it with care. And when you open up, their reaction reveals everything. They listen fully. They don't rush you. They don't minimize your feelings. They respond with warmth, patience, presence. This is emotional reciprocity, and it's one of the truest signs that affection flows in both directions. With someone who doesn't care, vulnerability feels risky. With someone who does, it feels safe. There is also the beautiful, nearly electric awareness of physical proximity. Even the smallest closeness, a touch, a brush of the hands, a hug that lingers 1 second longer, creates a warmth that surprises you. You don't overthink it. Neither do they. But you both notice it. Your bodies recognize each other's presence in the simplest ways. And what's more revealing is how neither of you pulls away too quickly. You both allow that extra heartbeat of closeness. That is not accidental. But perhaps one of the most telling signs lies in anticipation. The anticipation you feel before seeing them. The energy shift that comes when you know you'll cross paths. It's not anxiety. It's something softer, something hopeful, like your heart sits up a little straighter. And when they seem to prepare themselves in similar ways, fixing their hair, adjusting their clothes, brightening their expression, that anticipation becomes shared. Two people preparing for each other without discussing it is one of the purest markers of a mutual crush blooming. And behind all these subtle signs is the deeper truth that Carl Jung once described when he said, "What you resist persists." Sometimes you try to quiet your feelings, to stay neutral, to deny the significance of what you sense. But the more you try to mute it, the more the connection reveals itself in small, undeniable ways. Because some people arrive in your life not with noise, but with meaning. They don't disturb your peace, they deepen it. They don't ask for your attention. You offer it naturally. They don't pull emotions out of you. You give them freely. And even if neither of you has spoken it aloud, something is speaking between you. Something warm, something hopeful, something that feels like the beginning of a story your heart already recognizes. If someone appears in your mind as you hear these words, then perhaps the truth is already unfolding. Maybe the connection has been growing in these tiny moments, softly, gently, without pressure. Sometimes the heart knows long before the lips are brave enough to confess. There's a moment in every quiet connection when the air between two people begins to feel charged, even when nothing has been said. You don't plan it. You don't chase it. It simply arrives softly, instinctively. A kind of awareness that wraps itself around your interactions, turning the ordinary into something meaningful. And what's more beautiful is how this awareness doesn't overwhelm you. It grounds you. It doesn't create confusion. It sharpens your clarity in ways you didn't expect. You start noticing the way their mood affects yours. Not because you're overly sensitive, but because your emotions have become subtly intertwined. When they're excited, you feel a lift inside your chest. When they're stressed, something inside you wants to protect them, to be the softness in their day. This emotional resonance isn't something that appears with just anyone. It's a quiet sign that you've begun to matter to each other in ways neither of you has said out loud. Little details start to matter more than you'd ever admit. The way they pronounce certain words, the way their eyes shift when they're nervous, the rhythm of their laugh. You find yourself remembering these things without trying. And when they talk, you catch nuances others miss. This level of attunement isn't accidental. It's emotional focus. And when they show the same kind of awareness toward you, it reveals a mutual interest wrapped in gentleness. You may also notice how your conversations develop a unique rhythm. Not rushed, not forced, but alive. There's a natural flow that makes even the simplest topics feel warm. Messages that should take seconds turn into hours of back and forth. Conversations that were meant to be short stretch into something deeper because neither of you wants to let go of the moment. You respond faster without thinking. They reply sooner than they do with anyone else. This is how emotional gravity works. You both keep circling back to each other. Even your body responds in ways you don't fully understand. You find yourself standing a little straighter around them, not out of insecurity, but out of an unconscious desire to meet the moment with your best energy. They do the same. You catch them adjusting their clothes when they see you approaching. They tuck their hair back, straighten their posture, brighten their expression. These automatic gestures reveal something the mind has not yet spoken aloud. That you both care about how you are seen by each other. And then there are the moments when you catch them looking at you, when they thought you weren't paying attention. Their gaze holds a softness, almost like a question they're afraid to ask, but can't keep inside. You look away, not out of discomfort, but because something inside you recognizes the truth of it. This quiet observing is one of the strongest signs of a real crush. People don't linger visually unless something has captured their heart. Another thing begins to happen. You start imagining what small shared moments with them would feel like. Walking together, having coffee, hearing their voice at the end of a long day. Not fantasies, just gentle hopes. You see them fitting into your life in ways that feel almost effortless. And if this feeling is mutual, you'll notice they begin suggesting things, lightly testing the waters. A casual, "We should go there sometime." A soft, "You'd love that place." These aren't empty comments. They're invitations disguised as hypotheticals. There's also the shift in how you speak to each other. Your tone becomes warmer, more patient, more intentional. You both start listening with a sincerity that most people never experience. It's not about impressing each other anymore. It's about understanding each other. You want to know their thoughts. You want to hear their opinion. You want to feel their presence in the small spaces of conversation. Affection turns communication into connection. You might even find your intuition strengthening around. You sense when they're having a difficult day. You pick up on changes in their energy. You know when they're holding back a thought, or when they're about to smile. Carl Jung believed deeply in the power of intuition, saying, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." But in this kind of connection, the awareness isn't painful. It's enlightening. It brings you closer to the truth of your own desires. If you pay attention, you'll notice emotional courage beginning to grow inside both of you. You speak a little more honestly. You reveal feelings you don't share casually. They compliment you with a sincerity that touches deeper than surface admiration. You find yourselves trusting each other with small truths, then slightly bigger truths, until trust becomes the language you naturally speak. Neither of you may be confessing your feelings yet, but a quiet emotional commitment is already forming. And then comes one of the most revealing signs of all: the way they treat your presence. Do they look calmer around you, warmer, more themselves? Some people unfold when they feel safe. Others brighten, others soften. And if you're the person who brings out their truest version, their behavior will show it long before their words do. People cannot hide authenticity in the presence of someone who feels like emotional home. You may also notice how your interactions begin expanding beyond the surface. They ask about your dreams, your fears, your hopes for the future. They listen with a depth that tells you they're not just curious, they're invested. And when you share something profound or vulnerable, they hold your words with care. They don't judge. They don't dismiss. They honor your story. That's not accidental. That's emotional attraction unfolding with respect. And a beautiful thing happens when the feelings are mutual. You both start imagining each other's growth. You encourage them. They encourage you. You want good things for them. Not because you seek anything in return, but because their happiness genuinely matters to you. Mutual affection has a way of making you both better versions of yourselves. There's also the subtle spark of jealousy. Not unhealthy, not possessive, but enough to reveal care. When someone else flirts with them, you feel a small shift in your chest. When someone else compliments you, they react just a little differently. They may not say anything, but the truth becomes visible in their eyes. Affection always leaves footprints, even in silence. The longer this connection grows, the more undeniable it becomes. Not loud, not rushed, not declared, just present. Like a soft glow you carry into every interaction. And with each passing moment, the possibility becomes clearer. This might be something real, something rare, something unfolding in its own perfect time. Chemistry doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers, slowly, steadily, until both hearts finally hear the same truth. There comes a point in every quiet connection when the emotions between two people begin to take shape. Not loudly, not in a way that demands answers, but in a way that becomes harder to ignore. It's in the way your heart reacts before your mind even has time to catch up. It's in the tiny shifts that turn ordinary moments into something almost sacred. And by now, these signs have begun weaving themselves into your days in ways you never asked for. Yet somehow, welcome completely. You start to notice how easily they influence your state of mind. A simple message from them can lift your entire mood. A soft laugh shared between you can reset a heavy day. Even the thought of them appearing uninvited, but never unwelcome, brings a warmth that settles somewhere behind your ribs. Emotional chemistry isn't just about romance. It's about resonance. The way someone else's energy settles into your life, as if it has always belonged there. You may also become aware of how intently they listen to you, not just to your words, but to the spaces between your sentences, the pauses, the hesitations, the tone that betrays what you don't say outright. They pick up on moods before you express them. They ask questions that reveal a desire to truly understand you. And when someone listens to your soul, and not just your surface, something tender begins to grow. People don't listen this deeply unless they care. And then there's the softness in the way they say your name. Names carry energy. When someone is drawn to you, they speak your name with a gentleness that feels almost like a secret. It doesn't matter where you are or who is around. You can hear the warmth in their voice, the slight shift that betrays affection. You don't imagine this. Tone doesn't lie. There's also a growing sense of comfort, one that feels almost instinctive. You don't have to perform around them. You don't have to hide your quirks or silence your emotions. You can breathe. You can be yourself. And they respond with the same authenticity. They show you their real laugh, their real frustrations, their real dreams. When two people start revealing the versions of themselves they usually protect, something meaningful is forming beneath the surface. You might notice that time seems to rearrange itself around your connection. The moments leading up to seeing them feel long, stretched, filled with anticipation. But the moments spent with them pass almost too quickly, leaving you wishing for just a little more time. This is the paradox of emotional closeness. It expands your longing while shrinking your sense of the present. And if they seem to linger too, almost as if they're holding on to these minutes the same way you are, then the connection is mutual. Another quiet truth reveals itself through physical tension. Not discomfort, not awkwardness, but a delicate awareness of each other's movements. When you sit beside them, you're conscious of the space between your arms. When you walk next to them, your steps fall into rhythm. The air feels different when you're close, charged with something warm and unspoken. Chemistry isn't always explosive. Sometimes it's gentle, humming beneath the surface, like a secret only your bodies understand. If your hands brush, even accidentally, the moment stays with you longer than it should. And the look they give afterward, a soft smile, a shy glance away, a breath that catches slightly, tells you everything. These reactions can't be faked. They emerge from a place the mind hasn't yet rationalized. One of the clearest signs appears in the way they remember things about you. Not the big things everyone knows, but the little details. Your preferences, your habits, the stories you told weeks ago, the things you didn't think anyone was paying attention to. When someone remembers the details you've forgotten you shared, it means your presence has left an imprint on them. People don't store your details in their heart unless you matter to them. And perhaps even more telling is the way they begin to include you in their small future plans without fully realizing it. Not in grand statements, but in passing thoughts. You'd love that place. Or, we should try that sometime. Or, I could see you enjoying this. These tiny mentions are emotional trials. They are subtle ways of imagining you beside them without making it too obvious. If you respond positively, their eyes light up in a way words cannot replicate. But there's something even deeper, an emotional transparency that begins to unfold. They may start revealing their insecurities, their fears, their hopes, trusting you with pieces of their inner world that they don't casually share. You become a safe space for them, and they become one for you. Vulnerability, even in small doses, is a powerful sign of a mutual crush. People only open doors where they feel warmth on the other side. And if there's a moment when they seem nervous around you, stumbling over words, fidgeting, laughing more than usual, it's not because they're unsure of themselves. It's because their feelings are growing. Nervousness is the heart's way of saying, this matters. You may also find your emotional boundaries shifting in small ways. You begin wanting their opinion on things you normally decide alone. You look forward to sharing news with them before anyone else. You value their presence enough that it becomes woven into how you move through your day. This isn't dependence. It's connection expanding its roots. Even your silence begins to change. When you sit quietly together, it doesn't feel empty. It feels peaceful. It feels like understanding. That kind of silence is rare. It only happens when two people feel emotionally safe and intuitively linked. The world around you begins noticing too. People tease lightly. Someone asks what's going on between you. They've observed the glances, the lingering smiles, the subtle closeness. When the connection is mutual, it radiates outward, becoming visible even when both hearts are pretending to stay invisible. And then something profound begins happening in the background of your mind. You suddenly want to grow. You want to be better, not to impress them, but because their presence awakens parts of you that were asleep. Mutual attraction often isn't just romance. It's evolution. They inspire a version of you that feels more alive, more hopeful, more open to possibility. There's a sweetness to this stage that doesn't last forever. Not because the feelings fade, but because feelings eventually demand expression. Yet, in this gentle in-between, this season of recognition and hesitation, there is something undeniably beautiful. A story quietly writing itself. A chapter beginning without either of you naming it yet. And maybe the most telling truth is the one you feel when you imagine life without them. That small ache, that soft sadness, that realization that their presence has become something your heart now recognizes as meaningful. Sometimes love doesn't begin with words. It begins with awareness. There comes a moment in every quiet connection when the truth becomes impossible to ignore. Not because anything dramatic happens, not because someone suddenly confesses, but because the connection itself begins to speak louder than the silence surrounding it. You feel it in the way your heart reacts, in the way your thoughts drift toward them without permission, in the way your body recognizes their presence before your eyes even find them. It's in the way they smile when they see you, that subtle rise of emotion that can't be faked. It's in the way their voice softens when they ask how you're doing, as if your well-being matters on a level neither of you has spoken aloud. And it's in the way your own expression mirrors theirs. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because being around them draws out a version of you that feels lighter, warmer, more alive. A mutual crush is not chaotic. It doesn't rush. It unfolds like dawn, slowly, but with certainty. You may find yourself becoming more present when you're with them. You listen more deeply. You observe more honestly. You speak more openly. There's no pressure to be perfect. In fact, you feel strangely comfortable being imperfect, because somehow you sense they're not looking for flawlessness. They're looking for truth. They want to see the real you, and they allow themselves to be seen too. This is where emotional transparency begins to bloom without either of you naming it. You share small truths. They share small truths, and before you realize it, something inside you trusts them without being told to. Trust is not always a deliberate choice. Sometimes it simply appears when the heart recognizes safety. You begin noticing how often they show up for you in small, meaningful ways. They check in. They offer help without you asking. They make you feel seen in moments when the world feels heavy. These gestures aren't grand, but tenderness rarely is. It's the accumulation of small kindnesses that reveals the depth of someone's interest. And then there's the way they look at you during quiet moments. Not when you're talking, not when you're trying to be interesting, but when you're simply existing. Those are the moments their eyes soften the most. You catch them watching you as if they're trying to memorize something delicate and unspoken. That kind of gaze doesn't come from curiosity. It comes from affection growing roots. Physical proximity begins to carry new meaning. When you stand close, you feel a warmth rise between you. When you hug, even casually, there's an extra heartbeat of lingering. When your hands brush, something inside you lights up in a way you can't explain. And the way they react, the shy smile you weren't supposed to see, the breath they catch, the glance they break too late, reveals a truth neither of you is quite ready to speak aloud. A quiet longing begins to form, gentle, hopeful, and grounding. You want to know more about them, not just their surface, but their depths, their fears, their joys, their memories, their dreams. And if the feeling is mutual, you'll notice that they ask questions that go beyond the typical. They want to understand what shapes you, what moves you, what hurts you, what inspires you. Attraction rooted in emotional curiosity is one of the most beautiful signs of a connection that is more than fleeting. There's also a subtle protectiveness that grows. You care about their feelings. You want them to succeed. You want them to feel supported. They feel the same. Real affection often reveals itself in the desire to shelter each other from unnecessary pain, even if you don't express it directly. And as the connection deepens, imagination begins to play a gentle role. You start picturing how it would feel to walk beside them through your daily life. You imagine them laughing in your home. You imagine sharing simple routines. Coffee, errands, quiet evenings. Not fantasies, but possibilities. You feel what life might be like with them, and the feeling is peaceful. When a crush becomes mutual, the future doesn't scare you. It invites you. You might also find that their absence speaks as loudly as their presence. When you don't see them, something feels slightly out of balance. Not dramatic, just noticeable. And when you reconnect through a message, a glance, a conversation, the balance returns. That emotional shift is one of the clearest signs that your hearts have started communicating in their own private language. This is the space where unspoken affection becomes undeniable. The connection breathes. It expands. It asks quietly to be acknowledged, and yet neither of you rushes. You savor the slowness. You savor the unfolding, because something inside you both senses that this connection is not meant to be forced, only allowed. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." And that's exactly what happens in these moments. You begin awakening to what your heart already understands. You begin recognizing that this quiet pull, this emotional echo, this shared softness is not accidental. It's two souls aligning before the mind has fully caught up. And perhaps the most beautiful sign of all is this. You feel hope. Hope not built on fantasy, but on the gentle evidence of real connection. Hope that grows every time your eyes meet. Hope that steadies itself in your chest when you hear their voice. It is a hope that murmurs the possibility of genuine substance, suggesting that perhaps there is a reason these specific words are finding you right now. Perhaps a specific individual has drifted into your thoughts, not out of wishful thinking, but because the subtle indicators have been present all along, unveiling themselves one by one. It is possible that your heart is finally prepared to validate what it has intuitively known from the start. Because bonds of this nature are a rarity. They materialize with an unexpected gentleness, resembling a quiet secret shared by the universe itself. So please, take notice. A profound chapter is currently being written. If these signals struck a chord within you, pause for a moment, not to hasten the process or overanalyze it, but merely to respect the truth that is surfacing within. Bear in mind that some of the most exquisite partnerships originate in precisely this manner, starting as quiet infatuations that gradually and tenderly mature into enduring unions. If this message brought warmth to your spirit, please remember to like, subscribe, and share it with anyone else who might be experiencing these same unspoken tremors of the heart. Additionally, let me know in the comments section. Have you ever experienced the pull of a mutual attraction before? For you are certainly not walking this path in isolation. Ultimately, affection, in its most authentic and tender state, always commences with a spark of simple awareness.